then we get the story. And so Scarpy tells the story of Lanre, the creation war, and his path into becoming Haliax and the creation of the Chandrian. That is the story that we get. Now, there's a ton in this story. As he's speaking it talks about his voice was deep and rough, almost hypnotic. It kind of sounds like a Loden, which also makes me think that Scarpy might be a namer. He might, have that kind of power to him. But he talks about like the battle, and the story kind of centers around Selitos's, basically his kingdom, his city, and it's Myr Tariniel. He says, imagine a city as large as Tarbean, but on every corner of every street there was a bright fountain or a green tree glowing, or a statue so beautiful it'd make a proud man cry to look at it. The buildings were tall and graceful, carved from the mountain itself, carved of a bright white stone that held the sun's light long after evening fell. So it sounds like, this is like 5,000 years ago. It sounds like they were more advanced than the world that Kavoth inhabits now. Probably as a result of the extremely powerful magic that they had.
Hey, Dan, quickly, when that description of Myr Tariniel reminded me of where the Adem are from. Like the mountains carved into, wasn't it like bright white, and the mountains carved into are the homes and buildings carved into the mountains there as well?
I don't remember, like bright white could be. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but yeah, the fact that it's built up against a mountain makes me think that Myr Tariniel might have been built alongside or into the Stormwall Mountains, like their place was. Yeah, I think that, and there's a lot of people that believe that that's where Myr Tariniel was located, is in the Stormwall Mountains. Yeah, so yeah.
Okay. And I'll bring up real quick, because we're getting ready to get into that. That story that you were telling, you've told us before, the one of the Tinker and Jax. No, I take it back. It's not. Who do you think? Skiop. The story of Skiop took place in the same place that this big battle happened, right?
The Black of Drazen Tor.
Yeah.
When they talk about like 7 things, has Lady like Lackless hides them underneath her black dress. Think Black of Drazen Tor, Black of Drazen, black dress. And also Drazen Tor is close to an anagram of Doors of Stone. So I think wherever this battle is fought, they say more people died during this battle than live in the world today. So obviously this battle must have took place over a big amount of space.
Yeah.
But after the battle, they lock the enemy behind the Doors of Stone. I think the Doors of Stone are probably somewhere amongst where this battle was fought, and I think specifically Reread is where the Doors of Stones are specifically. Whether that's Black of Drazen Tor, where that battle was fought, encompasses a larger space than Reread, and then Reread is a more specific spot amongst this battle. Is not clear, but I think they probably Black of Drazen Tor, where that battle was fought, and Reread probably encompass the same area. That's my guess, at least.
I don't mean to keep getting you off track, Dan. So if you want to continue on, I have questions. That battle is where Lanre died, and wherever that took place is where Lyra wakes him up. You know what I mean? It's so. Locking someone behind the Doors of Stone, which would be the enemy, makes me think that possibly. My big question for this battle is who's the enemy? I know Lanre's fighting for this side, and he seems to be friends with Selitos to some extent, but after Lyra wakes him up, and they say she does that just by whispering his name, which makes me think that maybe she's a namer.
She's one of the most powerful namers in the world.
All right, so let's back up. Yeah. We're gonna go through this. the first things before we go into the battle and exactly what happened. The parts just keep in your mind. It's called the Creation War. So this is the battle that Valerian talks about as well. This is the battle between the Namers and the Shapers. The reason the Creation War was fought is because Valerian says Haliax stole the moon. So Haliax created the Fae, and there was a big battle between the Shapers, who were like Haliax, that were creating the Fae, versus the Namers, who thought what the Shapers were doing was wrong. And so they were kind of at odds with each other. But there was a chance for peace among them until Haliax stole the moon. When Haliax stole the moon, he went too far, and then the Creation War erupts. And so this war breaks out, and most, the cities of the world, there's hundreds of them, or however many they describe, and most of them are destroyed and just buried under rubble and decay and everything. And then there's 8 cities left. And the 8 cities are Belen, Antis, Beret, Tenusa, Emlyn, and the twin cities of Marilla and Murella. So, it just a little side note on that. I believe that the twin cities is probably the university in Imre. I think the underthing that Ari lives in is one of those cities. But I think those are the twin cities, Morella and Morella. I think she lives in one of those. And then I think the one city that survives the battle, because they say one city survived. Selitos looked out, he saw 6 cities burning. Obviously, he's at Myr Tariniel. Myr Tariniel was destroyed. He saw one city survived. I think Tenusa is probably Tenue. When they're talking about, how's the road to Tenue. I think Tenusa is Tenue. I think that's the one city that survived.
What's Tenue? Where have we heard of that before? Besides the road,
they have a little idiom where they're like, "How's the road to Tenue?"
Okay, but we haven't been there or any.
No, haven't been there.
Okay.
No. Just a little side note. There's a lot to look into as far as like the location of places and what they mean, but it's not that important when you're talking about the books because you don't have the maps in front of you and all that kind of stuff. But maybe we'll do like a side episode on where some of these places might be located. But just to give you guys a little bit of possibilities is, there's the Twin Cities and Tenue, I think are 3 of these cities that were destroyed. But anyways, so there's the Creation War is waging and there's 8 cities left. And then there's this big monster battle at the Black of Drazentor. And you have Lanre and Lyra fighting this battle, and they're 2 of the most central figures of it. And they're on the side of people like Selitos and probably Telu and all those guys are probably fighting against the enemy. The enemy, I believe, I think it's clear, is Haliax. I think, the war was started because Haliax stole the moon, so I think it's clear that he's the enemy. That's the main person they're fighting at. It's Namers versus Shapers. I think clearly, you got the biggest Namers in the world are Lyra, Alif, and Selitos, and then you have Haliax as the biggest Shaper in the world that goes beyond naming. And so I think that's the line in the sand. Haliax is the enemy. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it feels like the way the story is told, it feels like Lanre, Lyra, Selitos, Telu, it feels like they're the good guys, right? We're not hearing much about the bad guys. It's just these good guys are fighting, right?
Yeah.
Well, they don't say anything about Telu in this story.
No, not in this one.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah, that's in the next.
But you get him in the second story, and he's obviously buddy with Selitos and all them. So it kind of lends you to believe that he's probably fighting with them. But so in this battle, Lanre kills this beast that's like a shadowy beast, and he destroys him and he kills him, but it costs him his life.
Hey, can I
and
stop
then
you?
After
it sounds like a Dracus, and he says that he uses the armor like Kvothe says that the armor of the Dracus is like, the skin of the Dracus is like armor too. I just saw that
scales of black iron.
Yeah, it could be that he was fighting a Dracus. That is a theory that people have, is that's what it was. It's a Dracus. So it could be, or it could be something like a Dracus but worse, or in that similar vein though. But yeah, he fights this great beast. He kills it, but he also dies in the act. But then after the battle was finished, the enemy was set behind the doors of stone. I think that means Haliax was set behind the doors of stone. Whoever the enemy is, it doesn't make any sense to me that we don't know who the enemy is through 2 books. I think it's clearly someone that's been in the first 2 books, and Haliax seems like the prototype, exactly who you would pick as who is the enemy of the Creation War. Seems like the guy that stole the moon would be the perfect candidate. So that's who I believe is behind the doors of stone, but it's not confirmed.
The only reason I brought up what I said was because it coincided with, I think the cities coincided where the enemy was and where Lanre died. And as we've talked about the doors that Kavoth is locked behind. 1 being sleep, 2 being madness, 3 being
forgetting.
And death. That's what I'm saying. Maybe the 4th door was the doors of stone, and it seems like Lanre comes out a totally different person when he meets up with
Selitos, yeah.
Selitos, yeah. Anyway, I just throwing that out.
It's
that's
grief.
Where my mind is.
It's grief that turns him, right? I mean,
Yeah, but keep in mind, after Lanre, according to Scarpy's story, after Lanre is brought back from the dead by Lyra, they go about continuing to fight the war for multiple years.
Yeah,
and they start pushing back their opponents. They are wiping them out, and it's after a couple of years they've almost defeated them completely. But the enemy was locked behind the doors after that battle, and then Lanre and Lyra kept fighting for years after that. So I don't think that Lanre was locked behind any doors. I don't think the doors of stone are, forgetting, sleep, madness, death. I think that's a specific spot. I think that's the lackless doors, is the doors of stone. So I think those are different things.
It's just when everything is rumor as far as the war goes, between the battle and when Lyra wakes him up to when Lanre actually meets Selitos, and Selitos specifically says he looked different. He was a different person, and he was Haliax at that point. And
no, he wasn't.
When he meets with Selitos,
it does not say he looked different.
Haliax.
No, both wrong.
Okay.
1, it does not say that he looked different. What it says is, but Lanre heard her calling. Lanre turned at the sound of her voice and came to her. From beyond the doors of death, Lanre returned. He spoke her name and took Lyra in his arms to comfort her. He opened his eyes and did his best to wipe away her tears with shaking hands, and then he drew a deep and living breath. Does not say he looked different. Says he was the same. And then it says, the survivors of the battle saw Lanre move, and they marveled. The flickering of hope for peace each of them had nurtured for so long flared like hot fire inside them. Lanre and Lyra, they shouted, their voices like thunder. Our Lord's love is stronger than death. Our Lady's voice has called him back. Together they have beaten death. Together, how can we help but be victorious? So the war continued, but Lanre and Lyra fighting side by side. Lanre and Lyra fighting side by side. The future seemed less grim. Soon everyone knew the story of how Lanre had died, and his love and Lyra's power had drawn him back. For the first time in living memory, people could speak openly of peace without being seen as fools or madmen. Years passed after this. The Empire's enemies grew thin and desperate, and even the most cynical of men could see the end of the war was drawing swiftly near. So we know that Lanre was brought back, and then him and Lyra fought side by side, assuming Selitos is perfectly cool during this time with him, doesn't see anything wrong with him. So it seems like Lanre was fine and fighting for the same side, and people were fucking loving him for years after he was brought back from death. So it doesn't seem like anything major happened at that point, and years went by.
Okay,
now here's where it breaks. Here's where he breaks bad. Then rumors began to spread Lyra was ill. Lyra had been kidnapped. Lyra had died. Lanre had fled the Empire. Lanre had gone mad. Some even said Lanre had killed himself and gone searching for his wife in the land of the dead. There were stories aplenty, but no one knew the truth of things. So, I think that's Rothfuss giving us some hints to what happened. So it's that, Lanre was, Lyra was ill, Lyra had been kidnapped, Lyra had died. So I think when you put together some of the things that Lanre says as Haliax about he was betrayed, but ultimately he blamed himself for Lyra's death, I think somehow he got tricked, betrayed. People took Lyra from him and ended up killing her.
I didn't pick up on that that he was betrayed. That he said he was betrayed.
Yeah, it'll come up here in a second. I'll bring up the exact quote.
Okay.
But he says he was betrayed, but he ultimately blames himself. So I think maybe he did something. He went looking for something, searching for something where he should have known better. He made a mistake. Somehow he made a mistake. He also got betrayed. Lyra got killed.
At some point,
that's what we know.
At some point,
someone fucked him over.
Is there a mention of Lanre going to look for knowledge that he shouldn't have tried to?
Yes. Yeah, that'll come up. So we know also that, he does end up killing himself. So when they talk about Lanre killed himself and gone searching for his wife in the land of the dead, Selitos sees that he had killed himself not to go looking for her, but he was trying to escape the world. And so that's an aspect that I think is accurate to that rumor, which makes me believe that maybe Lyra was kidnapped and, Lyra obviously died, but I think she was probably killed. She was probably murdered. And that's what he's talking about when he was betrayed. But so when Lanre, after all these rumors are going by, Lanre goes to Selitos. He goes to Myr Tariniel and he's like, hey, come outside with me. Let me talk to you. And then when he brings him out there, he binds him. He says Selitos' name, true name, and he prevents him from being able to speak or even move. And it says, Selitos knew that in all the world there were only 3 people who could match his skill and names: Aleph, Haliax, and Lyra. So these are the 4 most powerful namers in the world: Selitos, Aleph, Haliax, and Lyra. But Lanre, all of a sudden, is powerful enough to shut Selitos down.
Somehow.
Who nobody was more powerful than him. Now all of a sudden Lanre is more powerful. And he had no power and names before that. So he talks about how had Lanre come by such power.
So Lanre goes from basically just being the ultimate warrior, because wasn't he just he was just a fighter, and until he gets killed, and then he comes back the most powerful namer that there is. Yes,
and I think the clue to this story is what happened is when Bass talks about, when Kavoth tells the story of going to meet in the Cathay. When he comes out of that, Bass is horrified that he talked to the Cathay. He's flipping out. He's like, tell me you didn't talk to him. He's like, you can tell this guy whatever you want, but I want to know the truth. You did not talk to him. He was furious. He's like, because he sees the Cathay as the worst of the worst. Nobody's worse than the Cathay. And he says, Haliax talked to the Cathay before he stole the moon. I'll read exactly what he says. He says, not wrong, Reshi, catastrophic, talking about if after you talk to the Cathay, you'd make all the wrong choices. And he says, not wrong, Reshi, catastrophic. Jack spoke to the Cathay before he stole the moon, and that sparked the entire creation war. Lanre spoke to the Cathay before he orchestrated the betrayal of Myr Tariniel. The creation of the Nameless, the Scaindine, they can all be traced back to the Cathay. So I think what happened is somehow Lanre was betrayed. He made some kind of mistake because he feels guilty about it. He did something wrong. He got betrayed.
Probably by the Cathay.
Lyra got killed. He went and talked to the Cathay. The Cathay led him down a path to acquire this power. He acquired the power, was not able to save Lyra, but the power corrupted him so much that, he can't escape his pain behind any door. He can't even die. When he kills himself, he comes back into his body. He's burned back into his body. So the Cathay fucked him over and led him down a path to gain the power, and that power ultimately is what created Haliax. That's how he becomes Haliax, and that's at the point where he goes and meets up with Selitos, and he binds him.
So can I hash out some of the speculation? Because chronologically, Lanre could have been betrayed while and that's the reason he got killed, or he could have been betrayed while he was dead, and that's the reason why he came back to life. Or let me restate that. That was, maybe he made a deal with the devil or something like that, and was able to come back to life for that reason. I mean, it doesn't actually say though chronologically when he was betrayed, when he was. You see what I'm saying? I'm just
no. It
could have been he got betrayed by the Cathay too, or
no. There's more clarity. Yeah, it's speculated. There's pretty good clarity on what he's talking about when he says he was betrayed. He goes, Selitos, after seeing Myr Tariniel get destroyed, and he starts to be able to get a little bit of movement back, and he finally can talk again. And he says, Lanre continued looking out over the ruins of Myr Tariniel. Myr Tariniel, his shoulders stooped as though he bore a great weight. There was weariness in his voice when he spoke. Was I accounted a good man, Selitos? You were accounted among the best of us. We considered you beyond reproach, yet I did this. Selitos could not bring himself to look upon his ruined city. Yet you did this, he agreed. Why? So here's the point. Lanre paused. My wife is dead. Deceit and treachery brought me to it, but her death is on my hands. He swallowed and turned to look out over the land. So he blames himself for her death, but he says deceit and treachery are what brought him to it. So he made some kind of mistake that ended up getting her killed, but the reason, making the mistake is it was because of deceit and treachery. So this is after he's already been brought back to life, because this is what killed Lyra, and that happened years after he died.
May not be, seemingly is not deceit and treachery of his own doing.
No, I'm saying I think that he was betrayed, and obviously someone screwed him over, but he blames himself for her death. So I think the reason he probably blames himself for her death is that whatever he was trying to do that made him liable to be betrayed and deceived. He was probably trying to do something he shouldn't have been trying to do, and that was the only reason he fell for the betrayal, that he didn't see it coming.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Well, on that, in that vein, towards what you guys are talking about, a little bit further, Selitos, looking at Lanre, he says that he had sought the power to bring Lyra back to life. Out of love for Lyra, Lanre sought knowledge where knowledge is better left alone, gained it at a terrible price. So that's what you were talking about, where he looked for knowledge, and what he did, obviously, it broke him, and he went bad, right? So, he's basically down a path of trying to end the world at this point.
Dan, do you think it's...
Yeah, knowing what we know, when they say had sought knowledge where knowledge is better left alone, that is pretty clear. Like, that seems pretty clear. He went and talked to the Cathay.
That's what I was going to ask.
Cathay has ultimate knowledge. Yeah, Cathay has ultimate knowledge, so, where else, you could gain ultimate knowledge, but where should you not go to gain ultimate knowledge? The Cathay, because Cathay will lead you down the worst possible path possible, even though he has ultimate knowledge. So it's
this representation of, like, ultimate temptation, in which case you should know better, but they just,
obviously at this point, if you're reading it the first time, you don't know about the Cathay, so you don't know that, but, going back through, that seems like, knowledge where knowledge should not be looked for, seems like talking about the Cathay to me. And we know that he talked to the Cathay from Bast. He talked to him before he created the Chandrian and before he sacked Myr Tariniel. So I think that's what they're talking about in that point.
Is the Cathay a namer? Do we ever
I don't know.
indicate that? I just ask because it seems like the creation war is between the Shapers and the Namers, but the one enemy that we know of, Haliax, is also a namer. While he is a Shaper, he's also a namer. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get some clarity.
Is it possible Haliax is the Cathay? Is that a possibility?
I don't believe so. I believe Haliax is different. I've never heard anything describing him as like this all knowledgeable, knows every path of the future that could ever be. Like he knows the future in an omnipotent way. I've never seen anything that describes Haliax in that way, and I've never seen anything that describes it. And Bass says Haliax talked to the Cathay.
Oh, okay, all right. No, I mean the only reason I was kind of making a connection there was Haliax he's like, it feels like in these books he's a symbol. You don't see him much. He seems to have gotten locked behind doors, right? But in the Cathay, doesn't go anywhere. People go to the Cathay. You know what I mean? So that's why it's kind of feeling like the Cathay's locked, right? To a degree.
Yeah, he seems trapped in the tree, but he doesn't seem trapped behind doors. And wouldn't make any sense if they're the same character, considering, they are mentioned separately. Florian talks about him separately. Bass talks about him separately. No one. The reason the reason that Haliax stole the moon is stated that he talked to the Cathay, and that's what led him to steal the moon. So I don't think they are the same person. One other part though I do want to bring up is, so kind of like hashed out, like, so the war went down. Lanre was killed, brought back. They fought for a couple years. Something happened where he was betrayed. He feels like he's responsible, though. Lyra was killed. He went seeking knowledge, talked to the Cathay. Next thing you know, he's Haliax. Chandrian are in place. We don't know exactly what the Cathay led him to do to gain that power and to become Haliax, but something happened. He's told some kind of knowledge that led him down this path. Then when he goes and betrays Selitos and they destroy Myr Tariniel and they destroy all the cities, it's save one. One city was left standing. I think that city is probably Tenuwe, Tenusa. As far as this time frame, Tenusa was one of the cities. I think it's Tenuwe. But I want to bring up Shehyn's story. Shehyn is the leader of the group that he sees in Adimre. Shehyn's that little lady, older lady that's a badass fighter.
Who tells him about the Chandrian.
Yes. And so in her story about the Chandrian, I'll bring up one part of the story. She says, in the Empire, there were 7 cities in one city. The names of the 7 cities are forgotten, for they are fallen to treachery and destroyed by time. The one city was destroyed as well, but its name remains. It was called Tariniel. So, first thing I'll point out is she doesn't know the names of the other cities. Scarpy does. So that tells you how much extra knowledge that Scarpy has. He knows, and it's not Tariniel, it's Myr Tariniel. So he knows far more than she does, and so that also lends credence to the fact that Scarpy is not just some dude walking around knowing stories. He knows stories at their fundamental level, so he's probably been around for him. But anyway, so but his name remains. It was called Tariniel. The Empire had an enemy, as strength must have, but the enemy was not great enough to pull it down. Not by pulling or pushing was the enemy strong enough to drag it down. The enemy's name is remembered, but it will wait. Since not by strength could the enemy win, he moved like a worm in fruit. The enemy was not of the Lithani. He poisoned 7 others against the Empire, and they forgot the Lithani. 6 of them betrayed the cities that trusted them. 6 cities fell, and their names are forgotten. 1 remembered the Lithani and did not betray a city. That city did not fall. 1 of them remembered the Lithani, and the Empire was left with hope. With 1 unfallen city, but even the name of that city is forgotten, buried in time. I think that's taken away. But the point is that, and she goes and names the 7 Chandrian. So Haliax is the enemy she's talking about. But in her story, he corrupted 7 other people. So originally the Chandrian must have been 8 people. So instead of the 7, it was the 8. But one of them did not go through with it. And he remembered the Lethani, and he did not destroy the city. Who the fuck is that guy? Because I don't think we have any fucking clue who that person is through 2 books.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, but that's a huge cliffhanger, is the fact that all the cities were destroyed save one. You know, it's likely not Selitos. They're not talking about him because he was the leader of Myr Tariniel, and that was destroyed. But he saw the one city that wasn't destroyed. But then, according to her story, it was originally supposed to be destroyed, but someone who started to join with Haliax backed out of it and didn't go through with it, and that city was saved.
I mean, is there any...
So I'm curious who the fuck that would be. I have no fucking clue who it is.
So,
but it's worth mentioning.
Let me ask just about the math. I mean, is there was 6 cities destroyed, and 7
of the 8 cities.
Okay,
there was 8 cities remaining. 7 of them were destroyed.
Okay, so there were 7 cities destroyed and 7 people that Haliax persuaded to betray their cities or just to join him. I mean, were the Chandrian leaders in these cities, or are they just?
It seems that way from her story.
Yeah,
Scarpy doesn't mention it,
right.
But from her story, that's just adding a little nuance to it. Seems like he recruited the leaders of all the cities and got them to betray their people and destroy the cities. So he obviously went to Myr Tariniel. The other 6 Chandrian destroyed their cities, but then there was one other person who was supposed to stay a Chandrian that did not betray it. That's how I read it.
Well, how does that? So if because Selitos was the leader of Myr Tariniel, so that saves one that there was no betrayal there.
Myr Tariniel, though, was destroyed.
No, I know. I'm saying, though, the leader of Myr Tariniel did not become one of the Chandrian. So that leaves only 6 cities with 6
It
people.
says 6 of them betrayed the cities that trusted them, not led them. They were trusted, at least among these people.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that they were running these cities, but these were 6 people that were trusted. The same way Lanre was trusted, and he destroyed Myr Tariniel.
Yeah, that makes 7. That makes more sense. So
that's something to keep an eye on for the 3rd book, because I'm really curious who's the one that remembered the Lethani.
And was he possibly the betrayal? I mean, was that actually maybe the betrayal that Lanre talks about?
I have no clue what the betrayal is, but I think that obviously that's a question that needs to be answered as well. Who betrayed Lanre, and what was the reasoning behind it? What got Lyra killed, and what did the Cathay tell Lanre? These are massive questions we get in this chapter. We get more questions than answers out of this chapter. Yeah. We get some answers, but we get even more questions for book 3.
Shape the whole story.
Why? Who betrayed Lanre? How did Lyra die? What did the Cathay tell Lanre to make him become Haliax? His name, Haliax, means the breath of Ajax. Did he talk to Ajax? And maybe is Ajax a part of this picture? And that's the reason he's called Breath of Ajax. Or is it he's the son of Ajax, and that's why they call him the Breath of Ajax now that he's gone bad? It's kind of like, he went from Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader. It'd be like, went from Lanre to Haliax.
So Ajax is using him, basically. Kind of how...
Could be using him, or it could be that he's just related to Ajax, and then when he went bad, like Ajax is bad, then he adopted the name Breath of Ajax, Haliax. So, it so many different ways you could read all this shit, but there's so many questions. And who the fuck is the person that did not betray a city? Who remembered the Lithani? A lot of questions.
Yeah. So I guess that was one of the things that I realized as we went through it that I got confused about was Selitos cursing Haliax. His curse was his face. His curse was the shadow, right? It wasn't that he became Haliax. He became Haliax before he betrayed Selitos. He was acting as Haliax when he betrayed Selitos. And it sounds like
correct. Lanre told him, he is like, I'm no longer Lanre. My name is more terrible, and
that's also why he could name.
He says, the 4 doors no door can bar my path anymore.
Because he got that,
which makes me think that he maybe the Cathay told him he needed to talk to Haliax, and the power that he needed to get to be able to talk to Haliax. And when he talked to Cathay, got that power, he went to talk to Haliax. Haliax fucked him over. That's why he's Haliax. I don't know. Could be something like that. But he's like, no door can bar me. Doors of death, doors of forgetting, doors of madness, doors of sleep. Maybe the doors of stone came.
So again, it's that ultimate temptation. He gave in. And by giving in, he's now cursed. And the rest, it sounds like the rest of his existence, all he's trying to do is in the world because of how cursed he is.
Yeah, and like there's the part in this chapter where it was like Selitos had heard the rumors and he was worried. He feared for Lyra's health, but more he feared for Lanre. Selitos was wise. He understood how grief can twist a heart, how passions drive good men to folly. So, obviously that's exactly what happened to Lanre. His passion and desire to bring back Lyra fucked up everything for him.
And there's that folly.
I knew Fitz was going to say it. I was going to say Fitz, and you got your folly
something
again.
To it. There's something to it.
Yeah, no, that's why I brought it up. I mean, it's because there is something to it. It's very similar to.
It's the wise man's fear. The wise man's fear is folly. Right.
Maybe.
So there's and the last little parts of this chapter I wanted to bring up is the doom. Selitos spoke, "This is my doom upon you. May your face be always held in shadow, black as the toppled towers of my beloved Myr Tariniel." Obviously, that happens, and that leads credence to what the story that Scarpy's telling is. That's what Kvothe saw as a man in shadow. "This is my doom upon you. Your name will be turned against you, that you shall have no peace." Maybe there's something about his name being turned against him. Maybe when people know his true name, it fucks up his ability to accomplish his purpose. It tortures him. Something about it. That's maybe why he went after Kvothe's parents and killed him, because they learned his true name and they were saying it. So there's got to be some aspect of knowing his true name and Selitos' curse. There's got to be something to that.
Can you say that second part of his curse again?
Yeah, "This is my doom upon you. Your own name will be turned against you, that you shall have no peace."
Okay.
And he says, "This is my doom upon you and all who follow you. May it last until the world ends and the Elu fall nameless from the sky." I think the Elu is probably the stars. It's what Lanre says. Like, Lanre goes, Lanre's shoulders bowed. "I had hoped," he said simply, "but I knew the truth. I'm no longer the Lanre you knew. Mine is a new and terrible name. I'm Haliax, and no door can bar my passing. All is lost to me. No Lyra, no sweet escape of sleep, no blissful forgetfulness. Even madness is beyond me. Death itself is an open door to my power. There is no escape. I have only the hope of oblivion after everything is gone and the Elu fall nameless from the sky." So it sounds like Haliax's goal is to end the world, create oblivion, and Selitos is saying that your name will be a curse upon you that will give you no peace until your goal is accomplished, until the Elu fall nameless from the sky. Saying as long as you're unable to accomplish your goal, my curse will be upon you.
I thought the Elu were the followers of Aleph. I just thought they were angels.
It sounds like, to me, it translates to star. It could be followers of Aleph, but I don't know what the fall nameless from the sky would be other than stars.
Well, I was drawing, like, I thought they were using a connection between angels and stars as if they're the same thing. I don't know.
The angels were created after this moment.
Oh.
So,
because that's the second story that happens after all this happens. So there were no angels at this point.
I'd like to throw out another little thing about Lanre. When he's talking to Selitos in this chapter, he says something to the effect of there is no joy, and he almost seems like his whole reason that he's for what he does from here on out is to save the world from pain, because in his mind there is no joy. Actually, it all blows away eventually, and so his plan is to destroy everything so that there is no pain, because it's all oblivion.
Correct. Yes, I agree that. Yeah, he's very emo. He's got this dark outlook on the world that because of the pain that he feels that nothing good could come of the world. Yeah, he's very emo, and so obviously Lyra's death and his ability to escape the pain has fucked this dude up.
That's interesting. There's Dostoevsky has a character or plays there one of his big more famous books. There's a character that takes that role where basically his whole argument is because there's suffering in the world is evil, the world is wicked. Therefore, God is wicked, because why would you create evil? Or why would you create pain and grief and suffering? So it's interesting to give so I mean, you can't say Lanre is completely wrong, right? Or Haliax, I guess, whatever you want to put it.
I mean, I think he's wrong in the fact that I don't.
Well, no, I get that, but
yeah, I can understand why he does.
That's
in
what
his
I mean.
shoes,
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's a continuing philosophy throughout, actually mankind. That people think.
I can understand why someone would be like nihilistic, but no, I don't agree with them.
Yeah, I also think it's a horrible path to take. However, you can see why someone can choose to be I don't know, it's not even temptation, it's just a bleak
despair.
Despair. Just desperation,
get lost in despair.
Yeah.
The only other part, as far as like just in that story that I bring up, is like he said when he was in the midst of cursing him, he says, but even as he spoke, the words were bitter in his mouth. Lanre, his face in dark shadow than a starless night, was blown away like smoke upon the wind. Very similar to how Lanre disappears when they're running away from whoever was coming up on him in that. So that also lends credence to the truth of Scarpy's story. That he not only gets the shadows right and his face and everything covered in shadows, but then he also gets the drifting away like sand in the wind, basically.
You said Lanre. You meant Haliax and the Chandrian after they killed both family and Rue.
Correct. Yeah.
That's what's so important about his story, is that so much of it does tie into what we've seen before, and we know that's reality. That really happened. So that's why this story is so.
This is all important. Fiction, though, Tim. It didn't really happen.
But so I was thinking though. So merch. So Selitos. Not Selitos. Haliax. Is just big frowny face. He's just frowny face. That would be him. He's the emo dude, right? Like he's bleakness forever, right? So he's
could just have like
a dark shadow, a hood over just a black face, except for like a white little smiley, downward smiley face, a frowny face,
shoulders droop,
just with a white line.
He's very pouty. He's very pouty, goth, very gothic.
Yeah.
I like
just
that.
Little pouty guy, little pouty face.
Then we come out of he finishes the story and he says, it wasn't until Scarpy stopped speaking that I noticed how lost in the story I became. Very similar, like I said, to Skiop, and when Skiop told his story to the Rue and how lost they became in the story. Kavoth noticed, same thing with Kavoth. He just got lost in this story.
You also got the diamond blue eyes. When you mentioned that, there's a couple times, and they talk about his sea foam. He made a kind of a cool connection because he calls him driftwood. He looks like driftwood, and then his sea foam,
a driftwood
eyebrow. Well,
right?
And that's actually coming in the next
he
chapter,
describes him as like a bum wandering the fucking roads. I mean, he describes Skiop and Scarpy very similar. Color of their hair, down to their color of their eyes, and down to their physical descriptions. It just seems like they're very similar. Seems like they're the same person, and his knowledge would make sense that they're the same person. But then he, I think, gives a clear clue of that he's there for Kavoth is when he talks about, I only know one story, but oftentimes small pieces seem to be stories themselves. He took a drink. It's growing all around us, and manor houses of the Cieldim and the workshops of the Cieldar over the storm wall and the great sand sea and the low stone houses of the Adim, full of silent conversation. And sometimes, he smiled, sometimes the story is growing in squalid backstreet bars, dockside in Tarbean. His bright eyes looked deep into me, as if I were a book that he could read.
So that's when Kavoth, after the story, goes up to try to give Scarpy a penny or a half penny.
Correct.
And apologizes because he doesn't know the rule. And that's how Scarpy describes the truth.
And then Scarpy basically winks at him like, I'm here for you.
Well, and then like you said earlier, that if I were how he looks deep into him as if he was a book that could be read, that's a loading too.
Yes, exactly. I was going to bring that point up. Yep.
So when you were talking about Scarpy also being a namer, yeah, I think you're right. I think he's super powerful, and it's funny, man, because I didn't see that, but I eventually got to realize that with Chronicler. Now seeing it with Scarpy, and just not picking up on it initially, knowing there's more there, but then with these types of details, it looks pretty clear.
Yeah, definitely. The only other part I had on that was, all stories are true, but this one really happened, if that's what you mean. He took another slow drink, then smiled again, his bright eyes dancing. More or less, you have to be a bit of a liar to tell a story the right way. Too much truth confuses the facts. Too much honesty makes you sound sincere. My father used to say the same thing. As soon as I mentioned him, confusing well of emotions rose up in me. So, obviously, we know Scarpy is admitting that it didn't happen exactly the way he told it, but more or less that is the story.
It's funny when he said you have to be a bit of a liar to tell a story. That whole thing you just read, it sounded like Arladin to me.
Yeah.
Like as he was speaking, and then he immediately says, my father used to say that, but it does definitely sound like when we got to hear Arladin speaking to Kavoth, it sounds like the way he would speak and the type of things he talked about.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, cleverly and with a different spin on, or a different perspective on what he's actually asking. Arladin.
Yeah, there's always an edge, and I like this whole thing with bigger application just to storytelling in itself. These are great, and the one that Fitz brought up about how or like a little bit earlier in the chapter or in this little section, there's no good story that doesn't touch the truth. Just those types of phrases are great, man.
Yeah, true to life. Let's talk about this story.
I think we figured it out here.
So, hey, so chapter 28, I didn't mention the name, and you may have more to talk about on 27, Dan.
No, that was it. I was going to bring it up to chapter 28 as well.
So it's called Telu's Watchful Eye, and so I just want to bring something up because it made me have questions. Is up to this point, I'm thinking that Telu is God, and at the beginning of this story, Selitos is bowing before someone named Aleph, and then Telu bows before Aleph too. So anyway, if you want to talk about all that.
Yeah. So I just first, it says then when he runs into the bar. Scarpy's in the middle of the story. He says, then Scarpy's story pulled me in and I could do nothing but listen to his deep rolling voice and watch his sparkling eyes. So again, that sounds like Skiop telling the story to the Rue where they just pulled him in. It also sounds similar to like when Kavoth's playing his music and it just wraps people
It also
up.
sounds like...
So it's very similar in that regard.
Sounds like a Loden.
Yes, exactly.
Sounds like a Loden
like
game.
like a Loden. So it makes you seem like Scarpy's, not just a storyteller. Seems like he's got some fucking
It also
power.
sounds like Kavoth might be somewhat attracted to him.
Yeah.
Dreamy eyes.
Sparkling eyes.
Silky smooth voice. It's like got wrapped in like Barry
He's into
Manilow.
old dudes. He's just into older dudes, man.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But then Selitos One Eye stood forward and said, "Lord, if I do this thing, will I be given the power to avenge the loss of the Shining City? Can I confound the plots of Lanre and his Chandrian who killed the innocent and burned my beloved Myr Tariniel?" Aleph said, "No, all personal things must be set aside, and you must punish or reward only what you yourself witness from this day forth." Selitos bowed his head. "I am sorry, but my heart says to me that I must try to stop these things before they are done, not wait and punish later." So he calls Aleph Lord, which early on, Kavoth, when he starts to tell his story to Chronicler, he mentions like the world started, Aleph started the world. He either knew the names of all things or gave names to all things.
I forgot about that.
So he starts off with saying Aleph is basically God. And then we find out in the story that one of the dominant religions is Telu's God. And then through Scarpy's story, we find out that Telu is like Aleph's right-hand man, his top angel. So,
Or
but
Jesus,
but
kinda,
Selitos
sorta.
calls him Lord, and we know how powerful Selitos is, and he calls Aleph Lord. So it makes Aleph sound like a god among the Ruar.
Yeah, it definitely parallels Christianity again, and even within Christianity, people have their own ideas about whether Jesus is actually God or if he's the Son of God, kind of literally. And
Well, that's all and that's why there's so many different sects of Christianity, right? It's the different different theories of what they believe.
Like similar with some big differences, but yeah, he definitely rooted the religions in our world so that they make sense to us as we're reading them. Here's what I find interesting is Scarpy mentions that these people talking are called Ruach. So it seems like in this world, this is before men and before the Fae. Florian exists in this world, but she doesn't, she's not Fae at this point. So it seems like there are Ruach who are the immortal beings who kind of rule the world. They're almost godlike figures, even though they can kill each other, but they don't seem like they age or die, die of aging. They seem to be immortal unless something kills them.
it seems Greek.
And
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. It's like Greek mythology,
Yes.
Greek gods, deities.
yes, very much. Yeah, sounds very much like Greek, like Zeus and all them. So Aleph sounds like Zeus, and you have all the other different gods. But it sounds like the people they rule over are not immortals. It doesn't seem like everybody is immortal in this time. It seems like there's specific deity figures, and then there's other people that are not quite human, not Fae, but there's people in this world that are below them that are more just kind of their subjects. And they're kind of ruling over their subjects as these godlike figures, these immortals. But Scarpy knows about Ruax. He knows about all the angels. He knows all the different names. He knows the creation of the Amyr. He knows Aleph wanted Selitos to join him. Unless he's just fucking bald-faced lying, which I don't get the sense of. I think that would be a stupid decision by Rothfuss. It seems like fucking Scarpy is either in close contact with these people that he would know all this shit, or he's one of them.
I was going to say, I mean, it sounds like a first-hand account.
Yes, it does.
Because he's got like very, very. I mean, the details. He's got very specific details about each individual. So yeah, I get the impression with how much he knows. Yeah, it sounds like he's in the group.
And to back you guys up with his power is when Scarpy does get arrested here in a few minutes, he's unfazed. He is talking mad shit to those cops, and
it's great. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome. And there's other parts to that Lynn, when he's getting arrested, lend to his power. But before that, they talk about Selitos went to Aleph and knelt before him. I must refuse, for I cannot forget, but I will oppose him with these faithful Ruach beside me. I see their hearts are pure. We will be called the Amyr in memory of the ruined city. So Amyr, Myr Tariniel, Myr, Amyr. We will confound Lanre and any who follow him. Nothing will prevent us from attaining the greater good. So he tells the creation story of the Chandrian. And then in this story, he's telling the creation story of the angels in the Amyr.
So,
and then,
can I pause you real quick?
Go ahead.
And I know that what I'm getting ready to ask is not answered, but I think the big question is, okay, so all of a sudden, Aleph is surrounded by all these different angels or mortals, whatever we want to call them, and Aleph is asking or has asked Selitos to do something, and Selitos says, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this instead. And people join him. So whatever he's asked him to do makes me wonder what he's asked him to do, because it seems like
he asked him to become an angel.
So what does that mean? He was a mortal and now he wants...
That's the next part. I mean, that's the next part. So Selitos turns him down. He was like, if I join you, then can I hunt the Chandrian? And he's like, no, you have to forget the past deeds, and you can only judge what you see from here on forth. So then he turns it down, and he's like, I'm going to create the Amyr, we're going to go after him. And then it says, but Telu stood forward, saying, I hold justice foremost in my heart. I will leave this world behind that I might better serve it, serving you. He knelt before Aleph, his head bowed, his hands open at his sides. Others came forward. And then it goes through all the different peoples. You had Tal Kriel, Dea, Endless, Vergisa, who had 100 suitors in Balin before the walls fell, the first woman who to know the unasked for touch of man. But all the different people, I don't think it's necessary to go through all of them. Let me ask a question real quick. But but then they came to Aleph and he touched them. He touched their hands and eyes and hearts. The last time he touched them, there was pain, and wings tore from their backs, that they might go where they wish. Wings of fire and shadow, wings of iron and glass, wings of stone and blood. Okay, so because I was confused, and I think that we need to clear it up for everybody. So Selitos started the Amyr and did not become an angel, whereas Telu did join Aleph, or at least he says leave the world, which means Myr Tariniel, or wherever they are, leave that actual reality and go to wherever Aleph is. And when they agree to that, along with all the other people like that you just named, they get wings and they become angels. Am I on track now? Yes. So Aleph gave out all the Ruach, all the immortals of this world. He gave them the offer to join him and become his angels, to basically be the justice of the world, to, when they see wrong, to go and judge it. Scarpy turns it down. He creates the Amyr because that's not good enough for him. Scarpy. He wants to go hunt. I'm sorry. Selitos. Sorry. Selitos turns him down, and Selitos starts the Amyr. And he decides, because he wants to hunt down the Chandrian, he wants to confound them, he wants to stop them, he wants to prevent them from accomplishing their goals. He doesn't want to sit back and wait and then judge them after the fact. And Telu joins Aleph and becomes an angel, and so do a number of others. The two that we get mentioned in the story later on is Ordal and Andon are two of the ones that we get mentioned later on. Like the girl that gives him the picture of the Chandrian with the Amyr, like the Amyr guy, she wrote she did the drawing in the Book of the Path, their Bible, and she scratched out all the words, except she didn't scratch out the names of Telu or the angels. And the two angels she didn't scratch out were sitting over the Amyr's right and left shoulder. One was Ordal and one was Anded. So we get them mentioned here in this part. They're mentioned a couple of times. Martin also prays for him. He was like, when Kvothe is going psycho mode, stabbing the dead body to kill the other sentries, when he's fighting who turned out to be Cinder, when he's stabbing those, Martin is praying, and he's like, I pray to Telu, and, who is Minda, who is you? I pray to Imperial Poontang. I pray to Ordal and Anded. So those are the only two angels that are mentioned, multiple times throughout the book. But there's a number of angels that join Aleph.
So it's all the Ruach though. I'm sorry, I just want clarity. They're all
yes.
the Ruach besides Aleph.
I think Aleph is Ruach as well. I think he's just he's the one they consider Lord. Okay. He seems like the godlike figure above them. If Selitos is calling him Lord, and we know Selitos, the greatest namer, is obviously extremely powerful. He's as powerful as Lyra and Haliax and Aleph. Like, he's as powerful a namer as Aleph, but he calls Aleph Lord. It seems like Aleph might be like the god amongst gods, Zeus compared to the other gods.
So the Ruach are the original people. Not necessarily man, right? But they're like the original people of the
I don't
world.
see them as people. Gods. I see them as like gods, like the original Greek gods. And they ruled over the people, and they used to be on the world with them, ruling them. But then they left, and then when they left, like maybe some of the... because it talks about some of the Ruach went with Aleph and became angels. Some went with Selitos and became Amyr, and then some did not want to get involved in that shit, and they went a different path. I think some of them went and intermingled with the non-deity figures, the mortals, and they created created humans who became the Adem, who became the Ru, and then some became... went into the Fey world, and they became Fey creatures, and I think, became the Tinkers and shit like that.
That's the origin of man.
Yeah. I think, like, through the Ruach intermingling, the Ruach that did not join Aleph or Selitos, didn't join the Amyr or the angels, I think that's where you get the creation of the Fey creatures, and you get the creation of the Tinkers, and you get the creation of the Adem, and you get the creation of the Ru.
So
does that all make sense?
It does. One question though is, so should we assume that let's label the Ru immortals and then humans mortals? Should we assume that because Lanre dies that he is a mortal? He's not Ruach. He is immortal. Is that fair?
No, I think I think the Ruach can be killed, but I don't think they would die naturally.
Do you think?
I think they're immortal in the sense, just like kind of like the Greek gods. Like, you could kill a Greek god, but outside of like physically killing them, they're not just going to die on their own.
My question's about Lanre. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, Lanre, obviously, he gets killed, but then he's brought back, and then now he can't die.
I just
when he kills himself, he comes back.
I just want to classify I think, him. Is he immortal? Is he an immortal? Is he a god, or is he a human? Is he on the level of Selitos and all those guys, or not?
Yes. They talked to each other as equals. They were friends. I see them both as Ruachs.
Is there another classification at that point? Is there even a lower being?
I think, yes. Like I said, I think there is the Ruach, who are like the Greek gods. And then I think the people that they ruled over were mortals.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think those mortals
Plebes
became the Fey creatures like Bast, or the Tinkers, or the Rue, or the Adem. I think there's an intermingling between Ruach and the mortals that created all these different factions.
So now I'm going to ask.
I think there's some kind of intermingling between them. Kind of like you have, Hercules,
Right.
who was a, son of man and a son of God.
Half.
I think, that's the same thing with like Bast or the Tinkers or the Adem or the Rue.
So you think, okay, that was my next question. If you think the Rue are a mix of God / because that's
Yes.
what it alludes to, and that's why I think, and we've been talking about where I think that it's a possibility that the Rue knew the secrets of the Waystones, and maybe that's why. That might be totally far fetched, but the fact that they stopped at every Waystone for some reason, maybe some of them didn't know. Maybe they didn't know at this point. It's been forgotten, but they still did it. So I would think that just that they stopped, they would have to know that stuff can come in and out of the Fae.
Yes. Like I said, when we talked about that on that episode, that was my position, was that it was, a tradition that was built off of knowledge back then, but the tradition has lost the true reason that they stopped.
Right.
As time has gone by, people have lost that information. Just as they've lost the information, most people have no even inkling of a Selitos. Or, like the origin story of Lanre. Most people don't know that. Ruach. No one else talks about Ruach. These immortal beings. They don't talk about them. So, I think, this information from 5,000 years ago, I think all of that information has been lost. And it's in very, very sparing stories. It's very hard to piece together what happened back then, because very few people even have access to that information anymore.
Hey, Dan, just because of your Freudian slip earlier, do you think Scarpy is Selitos?
I don't think he's Selitos.
Okay.
Like I said, I think
I wondered if it was a slip.
I think he is Skiop, and I think Skiop is the tinker that Haliax, took all his shit from. And so I think Scarpy is possibly a Ruark, or he's a tinker that spanned out of the Ruark, and he's been around for a long fucking time.
I was gonna say, so if he was, let's say he's part of this group that he knows these intimate details of the story, can he be an angel
or the Amyr?
I don't think he could be an angel, because there's the line where it goes, then Aleph spoke their long names, and they were wreathed in white fire. The fire danced along their wings, and they became swift. The fire flickered in their eyes, and they saw into the deepest hearts of men. The fire filled their mouths, and they sang songs of power. Then the fire settled on their foreheads like silver stars, and they became at once righteous and wise and terrible to behold. Then the fire consumed them, and they were gone forever from mortal sight. None but the most powerful can see them, and only then with great difficulty and a great peril. They mete out justice to the world, and Telu is the greatest of them all. So, no, because everybody can see him, I do not think he's an angel.
Well, I was kind of wondering if they do like not a skin dancer type thing, but they can embody something. The reason I thought about that is wings of fire and shadow, wings of iron and glass, wings of stone and blood. And it almost felt like that gives them the ability to move in and out of the world.
Well, it seems like, Kavoth, when he was on his deathbed, he saw the wings of fire, and they embraced him. So, no, I don't think angels can just be easily seen. I think what Scarpy's telling is accurate, and I don't think I know, but I'm saying I don't think he's an angel. But I think the Amyr could be very similar, because they did not choose that path. They could be similar to the Chandrian, where Cinder can go out into the world and recruit a bunch of miscreants to go and waylay the mayors, as tax collectors, and he can go and steal their shit, and he can intermingle in the world. So I think the Amyr, the Ruach like Selitos, I think they could probably intermingle among just regular humans and be hidden in plain sight. I think so. It's more likely that Scarpy, if he is a Ruach, that he is one of the Amyr than he is one of the angels. I don't think the angels can be seen easily.
I agree with that. I'm devil's advocate because of, and again, the Wings of Stone and Blood is something that to me hints at they can choose to be seen. It gives them an option. It gives them an option to move in as fire or shadow, move as iron or glass, move as stone or blood. That's kind of what that hints at, as far as I'm concerned. I still think it definitely, to me, it would make more sense to argue for Scarpy to be a part of the Amyr rather than Angel. It's just those details about the wings makes me think there could be more to it.
Yeah, but he sees the wing, but he doesn't, like, when he snaps to, he doesn't see it anymore. But then, like they say, none but the most powerful can see them, and only then with great difficulty and at great peril.
Yeah, no, I yeah.
So that, unless he's lying.
No, that's not. I'm not saying. I'm not trying to dispute that. What I'm saying is, I feel like they have a choice, or they're given the ability by these lines about wings of fire and shadow, wings of iron glass, wings of stone and blood. It makes me feel like they can move in and out of the world and influence things. I'm not saying that necessarily they can be seen. They definitely can. Advocate.
They definitely are able to move in the world, but I think they are moving in the world like, angels in our world, would be, in the sense that angels in our world are moving around the world. They're influencing things, but no one can see them influencing them. You can't actually see you can't see the angel Gabriel influencing the world, but according to, the religious texts, those angels are influencing the world. The devil is influencing the world. All these things are influencing it on a level that us as people cannot see. We don't see angels with the naked eye.
Or occasionally.
So I think that
I think it runs parallel to our world.
Yeah, okay, but
he says you can see them. It's written in the book that you can see them, just at great peril and difficulty.
Yes, none but the most powerful. I'm just talking about, like, the average person is not going to be able to see an angel, even though the angels are working their trade. Telu is punishing people, and I think there is a sense that he went down to Imperial Poontang and impregnated himself in her and became Minda. I think that probably something along those lines happened, where he was birthed into the world through her. But I don't think that you're just seeing Telu or any of these angels like on a normal thing. I think they're just hidden, working their magic through the world behind the scenes.
Right. I'm with you, Tim. I understand. The description.
What about Clarence?
Clarence?
It's a Wonderful Life. You ever seen It's a Wonderful Life?
No.
What about him?
When the angels get their
I don't
wings,
know what you're talking about.
When the bell rings.
That doesn't have relevance to this book. It's all part of the world.
I've never seen it, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
You've never seen It's a Wonderful Life?
Merry Christmas!
No, it because everybody blew it up, like, all through the years, everybody's like, oh, you got to watch It's a Wonderful Life. No, it was one of those things, like, out of spite. It's like, well, I'm not going to watch it.
Watch it. That's what we learned about. Movie. We learned about the depths of Dan's spite on this episode. Yeah. It goes deep.
Are you referring to, Tim, though, when a bell rings and an angel gets its wings?
I'm saying an angel is embodied by Clarence. Yet, and he's in the world. People can see him.
I'm with you, audience. I have no idea what he's talking about. And this dude's old as shit. And You're just dealing with some old people that talk about old movies.
So it's not like Harvey.
Right, we're
Harvey
like 100
is
years
where
old.
Jimmy Stewart is the only one that can see the White Rabbit. It's different, and It's a Wonderful Life where people can see Clarence.
Oh, is that right?
Dude, you guys might as well start talking about musicals. You're just losing everybody. Nobody watches musicals anymore. Nobody watches these old ass movies. Dude, we got fucking Kingkiller Chronicles. Like, who the fuck is going and watching these old ass movies, black and white movies with this terrible videography and terrible acting?
You know what? I'm going to hop off the podcast now. I want to remember Clarence, and I'm going to watch the rest.
Yeah.
Wonderful Life right now. Get ready
really
for
fucking
Christmas.
Dive into that and really fucking see how it ties in.
Dang it! Now
I think Dan doesn't like the title because of his pessimism. He doesn't like It's a Wonderful Life. He's so spiteful.
It's not a wonderful life.
It's the
it's very emo of him.
He hated Have a Nice Day Cafe too.
He's channeling his Lanre.
Oh.
Black and white stupid movies. Get some color.
Dang it, I had something too. Go, Dan, start talking. I'm trying to refresh my memory of what we were talking about.
Well, hold on. Here's a. I did want to bring this up because the fact that he talks about how that you can't see these angels without having great power or under great difficulty. I think Kavoth saw an angel when he was on his deathbed.
Yeah.
And
we just
talks about talking to gods. Chronicler mentions that he killed an angel. So I think that's gives a signal that Kavoth is one of these dudes with great power.
Now, wait a minute, Dan.
That he does end up seeing an angel.
Doesn't Chronicler actually say that he fights an angel?
He fought an angel, and then he's like, this is the man, that the face of the man who's killed an angel.
No, he says fights an angel, kills a demon.
No. He tricked a demon to get his heart's desire and had to fight an angel to keep it. This is the face of a man who has killed an angel.
Okay.
That is the three things. So, fight an angel and killed an angel is what he mentions. He just says tricked a demon. But it talks about that he saw an angel, and it also talks about, like Kavoth says, he spoke to gods, which makes me believe that he eventually runs into Telu, and he's obviously, if Scarpy's right, he has to be extremely powerful. But one of the main reasons I wanted to bring that up is when Scarpy, after he brings that part up, and he's like, Telu is the greatest of them all, that's when the Telian priests jump in and are like, that's enough. We've heard enough of this heretical story you're telling. And they start beating the shit out of him. Scarpy tells them, it's not as if I expect you to bound off looking for Haliax in the Seven yourself. Kind of implies that he's
Amyr,
one of the people that is after them. But he's like, you guys are obviously not great men. You're not going to be going after the Seven, which is what the Amyr are doing. But he says, I suppose that could be true. Telu always said, and then the guy smacked him. He's like, do not speak his name. The just screamed, his face livid red. Your mouth dirties it. It is a blasphemy upon your tongue. Oh, come now, Erlis, Scarpy chided as though talking to a small child. Telu hates you even more than the rest of the world does, which is quite a bit. That sounds like he knows Telu on a personal level.
Yeah. Or that he is Telu.
No.
Sure.
Maybe. Here's the thing. I don't see that because everybody can see Scarpy. So if Scarpy is Telu, that means Scarpy is lying through his fucking teeth.
Well, no, it doesn't necessarily mean that. He hasn't said that they can't.
100% it does. Because they are not seeing it. What is the great peril that they are experiencing?
Through great difficulty or great peril. And possibly it's only great difficulty on Telu's end.
Only the most powerful can see them, and only then with great difficulty and at great peril. If everybody can see Scarpy, and he's an angel, then Scarpy's lying through his fucking teeth. And I don't believe that he is.
Or Scarpy is Telu, and he is going through great difficulty to bring himself into the vision of everyone.
Well, then he's still lying.
Because everybody's
that's not what he's
seeing him. I understand. Yeah. Okay.
Either way, like, the only way that makes sense, like, if angels can just be seen, then Scarpy's a liar, and Rothfuss just threw in a complete red herring just to completely throw us off the tail, and to me, that's just terrible writing.
Well,
like, if Scarpy, if Scarpy's tail, like, could be massaged and it could be a little bit different, but when you're just point blank saying only the most powerful can see me, and only at great difficulty, and peril. Only at great peril.
That's the thing. That great peril is the...
Yeah, it cannot be just that angels are just easy to be seen after that, after you say that.
Great peril is the only thing I can't explain away.
Unless you write in something else that says Scarpy's a fucking liar, but he never does. And in Scarpy's other tales, like, give some evidence that he's telling the truth.
Okay, well, what about this? What about this story of Canis? Do you think that that's all bullshit, or you think that that happens in heaven?
No, like I was saying on last episode, I think...
What if Minda is still alive as Telu? Maybe that happened... Could that have happened after this, where, yes, Telu joined and became the greatest of the angels, then went back and became Minda?
No. Like I was saying last time, I think what Trappist's story tells is it sounds very similar to the first story Scarpy tells. But it also seems like it's something that happens long after Scarpy's story. That it's almost like the Chandrian have tried to end the world multiple times, and they got close multiple times. And the second story, that Telu is the one that stopped them, or maybe Telu had something to do with putting the Cathay in the tree and stopping the Chandrian and those kind of things. I think it lends credence to the fact that these stories are cyclical, but I want to get you guys off the idea that the angels are easily seen just walking around among us, because there's no evidence for that.
I was never saying they were. What I was saying is they may have a choice where they choose to be seen. Mm-hmm. Like, if so... Again, I'm saying I think I could see it be arguable that Scarpy could be an angel, and he is selecting now to be seen as Scarpy. He's taking this role himself, and he's some other, and maybe his name's not Scarpy, maybe he's an angel with a different name, but he's utilizing this role and this position to move Kavoth along. I'm just saying it's the biggest part that I'm trying to make sure I reiterate. I'm really, more than anything else, just doing the devil's advocate thing, because I was lending importance to the way that they described the wings, and I thought the way he described the wings made it feel like the angels have the choice, have the option to move in and out of the world, move in and out of the world as objects, as having influence in a multitude of ways, amongst them being, what was it, blood and bone, or something like that.
Stone and blood. It's tangible and living. That's why.
Yeah, that's what made me.
It's tangible.
Yeah, but right after that, he's like, but then they're burned completely out of the existence,
so
out of the sight of men. So I do believe they are tangible things, but I think they are so powerful and they transcended human, even a form that humans can even comprehend or can see. That makes more sense to me than Scarpy is just fucking bullshit.
No, I know, and I agree with that, and that's why I would see even an allegiance to angels being stars or something, because we don't really understand what stars are. We have our, there's a scientific theory about what they represent, but put yourself in a world where you don't have astronomy, right, and you don't have high telescopic lenses, and you're not able to really tell what those are. You're just this thing up in the sky, and they tie angels into things like stars and that type of thing. You know what I mean?
So
like intercelestial power.
But again, Dan, I want to just hash it all the way out. So speak to Taylun becoming Minda. If or do you take that story as a total fabrication, him and his role with Canis? I mean, did Taylu actually live? Was he Minda?
Yeah, I mean, I'll re-say what I said. I think that this story mirrors the story Scarpy told, and I think it's either the same story told and from a perspective of they don't understand the truth, so they're mixing up aspects of the story and telling a mixed up story, or it's that this story of Taylu happened, but it happened well after the fact that Scarpy's story happened, and it is that the Chandrian have almost accomplished their goal a few different times, that maybe it shows that Taylu is the one that put the Cathay in the tree, and the second time that the Chandrian almost accomplished his goal, maybe Taylu stopped him.
See what I'm saying, though, Dan?
It's the same thing.
See what I'm saying, though? It contradicts what
I've said.
It contradicts if Taylu, if it is the second case where it happens way further and Taylu is the one who does all these things and puts, then he's a tangible person. It contradicts what you're saying or what the book says about, or what Scarpy says about everyone being able to see him.
No, he was seen as Minda when he was born of a virgin mother. He was born. He wasn't seen as Taylu. So at that point, he was
no longer an angel. And he took a different form.
He was like Jesus.
Yeah.
It's not like people saw God. They saw Jesus. They saw God in human form.
Okay.
They saw Taylu in human form.
Well, I mean,
born of a virgin woman.
Obviously, and if you in the same context of our understanding of Christianity or our world's Christianity, Aleph brings these people, turns them into angels, which is a different form from Ruach, and then however many years later, Taylu takes him and gives him another different form where he did fit that criteria, but now he's being birthed of a virgin mother and he's part mortal, or however you want to call it. So it still makes sense. It doesn't contradict it.
No. I mean, yeah, I think
we just need to understand it in that context. That once he's born as Minda, he's no longer that in that criteria of you can't see him. And if that's the case, he may be Scarpy.
Well, I don't. Oh.
Because Minda says, Taylu says, as Minda, I'll come back whenever I need to. And so if he died with Canis and he decided to come back, he could be Scarpy. It could be anybody, or it may not be anybody.
You know, we could go down.
I'll leave it alone.
You know, we could claim everybody as everybody, but I don't think unless there's supporting evidence for the theories, I don't think Taylu is Scarpy. Scarpy talks about like he knows Taylu on a friend to friend position, not a I am Taylu, and it just doesn't make any sense. They can't be the same person. Like Taylu is walking around just telling. It would be just so. Like if you're just thinking about just writing a story, and you're writing this story, and then we read these two stories, and then all of a sudden Scarpy is Taylu. Like why? Like what would be the reasoning behind that? It doesn't make any sense.
Let's move on. I agree.
So the last aspect of chapter 28 that I wanted to bring up was he not only does he go and he says, "Oh, come now, Erlis." So he calls the priest's name. The priest has not said his name. There's no mention of the priest's name. He knows the priest's name. And then when he's get beat up, he also goes, "You should run, Kavoth. There's nothing to be gained by meddling with these sort of men. Head to the rooftops. Stay where they won't see you for a while. I have friends in the church who can help me, but there's nothing you can do here. So he names not only Erlis, but he also names Kavoth, and he has not heard both their names. And that leads me to think that he either has a knack where he's able just to kind of get a sense of things, or that he is a namer and he was able to name these people, and he named Kavoth, and that's part of what woke him up, is he named Kavoth.
His real name, not just the spelled out name, Kvoth.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely more to him. That is one of the biggest pieces of evidence, if we didn't already have it, which we already do. But that ability itself is huge. There was a little spot when he's getting into it with the justices, and Kavoth says he managed to catch Scarpy's eye. He gave him a little half smile.
Yeah,
before he names him.
Yeah, and he said, deep inside me, something selfish was saying, if you'd come earlier and found out what you needed to know, it wouldn't be so bad, would it? I don't know. For whatever reason, because he caught his eye, because like he felt himself, I almost felt like Scarpy put a thought in his head, but I don't know. It just kind of jumped out at me. I mean, I guess it could just be Kavoth's subconscious, or his
which part are you talking about, Tim?
When he's getting arrested, it stuck out to me, Tim. When he's getting arrested, and Scarpy looks over at Kavoth and gives him a half smile.
Mm-hmm.
It stood out to me, Tim. It seemed more like Kavoth was wanting to know that piece of the story that he missed, or just that he wasn't able to tell Scarpy that he wanted to know what he wanted to know about the Chandrian, which was the part of the story that he missed, I think. When I asked earlier what Aleph was actually posting to Selitos is, at the same time, there's an opposite side to the story, I think, where whatever happened to Lanre turned him into the obverse of what Selitos becomes. The Aleph versus the Chandrian. The leader of the Aleph versus the leader of the Chandrian. You see what I'm saying? So, and that's what Kavoth wants to know. He wants to know the Chandrians, how they became who they are, and who they really are. What their weakness, I mean... Anyway,
he wants to know as much as he possibly can.
Sure.
And that's what he missed.
He missed the Chandrian side of the story. Or Lanre's side of the story.
Well, and what in particular I'm pulling at, I may just be trying to pull something out of it, but it's because what we've been talking about with Scarpy, the fact that he does seem to have these abilities, how he can be a namer, how he controls the room, those little nuances that are similar to Elodin. That's why when I read this part through again, it did jump out at me, where I was wondering, is he planning something in Kavoth's head at that point? And is there more to what is said here that I should be considering?
I didn't see anything. I just took it as like, this dude gives no fucks. He has no fear of them whatsoever. Even when they're beating the shit out of him, like, it does not concern him at all.
Yeah.
Like, that just seemed to be what it was trying to get across, that this dude just does not give a fuck what they're doing. Like, he's like, these people have no power over me.
Yeah, I mean, and that does come across. I was just wondering, is there something more in this part, but
yeah. No, I got you. I didn't see anything, but it doesn't mean there's not, but I didn't notice anything.
I love his shit talk, man. He's
he's fucking great.
It's so good, where he just fucking railing these dudes.
You guys could go check the prostitute's bed for fucking lice.
Yeah.
So what is it?
You can look for the Chandrian.
You guys are good
small
for.
task for small men, something like that.
Yeah. The trouble would be finding a task small enough for people like you. He gives no fucks about what they're doing. He has no fear of them whatsoever.
Yeah, it's
but then he
great.
Doesn't look when he does name Kavoth, he doesn't look at him, and you could take that of one of two ways. That that he doesn't want the guards to know who he's talking to, or that he's speaking to them telepathically in some way. Maybe, I don't know. It just stood out to me that I knew what you were pointing out, Dan, that he might have spoke to Kavoth, naming him by his real name, and so that there might be something else to it. And he didn't look at him.
I didn't get a sense of like anything telepathically going on. It seemed pretty clear he was speaking out loud.
Without that direct, I mean, yes, everything is very conveniently timed for him to be coming into Tarbean. Kavoth hearing about him in the right way that gets him to show up. All those things, are very convenient. But to have him say his name, us knowing that there's no reason he would know his name, right? He hasn't heard his name. That it changes everything. Completely changes the whole dynamic of it. It forces you to look further into Scarpy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he knows Erlis and he knows Kavoth, and doesn't seem like he had, either of them expected him. He's never heard Kavoth's name, and Erlis, went white in the face when he said his name. So seems like there's something to it.
I have friends in the church. I have friends.
Makes me think Amyr.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I just thought he was saying that I'll get out of jail. Don't worry about me.
Well, it's both.
Yeah,
I think it's both. Yeah, I think it's both. Yeah,
it just makes me think. The Amyr were part of the. Basically, were part of the church, and I believe that the Amyr still exist, and they're just in hiding, and so I think he's either part of the Myr, like Selitos is part of the Amyr, or he's a more human figure of the Amyr, but more powerful than just a standard fare member of the Amyr.
Well,
but I think it's highly likely that he is a part of the Amyr more than anything.
But isn't the church that he's talking about the Talun church? And doesn't that differ from the church that he's actually a part of, where Aleph is the main god? What were we talking about last week? Where aren't they two separate churches? Whereas one's kind of like a Jewish, and
that's
one's
the Menden.
A Christian.
No. The Menders and the Taluns are both view Talu as God.
Okay.
Scarpy obviously doesn't. So Scarpy doesn't appear to be a part of either of their churches.
Okay.
Yeah, Scarpy would be more orthodox, seems like.
Not even orthodox. He'd be more an entirely, if he's religious at all, an entirely different religion, because he sees Aleph as Lord and not Talu. He sees Talu as Aleph's angel. So he's not Talon or Mender. He's either not religious, but he doesn't talk on whatever they're basically like their Sunday, whatever day they talk, he doesn't tell stories on that day. So that lends some credence that he might be religious, but it doesn't seem like he's Talon or Mender. If he's religious in any way, it seems like more likely he'd be see Aleph as his deity than the others.
Well, and that, I think that also speaks to his I know one story. That's the story. All these others are spin-offs, parables. Right.
But yeah, that covers those chapters for me. I don't have anything else on them.
Well, there's a lot more that we could talk about.
Yeah. Well, if you guys
there are other movies I've seen that are black and white. Do you want to talk about
them? Yeah.
And I could talk about a few other people that Talu could be in the story, Dan.
Yeah. Talu is probably
all of us.
Arleden
and Arleden.
Yeah, Talu is everybody. Every character is Talu.
Merch.
It's all a story about Talu's split
Talu.
personalities.
That's the merch. We are all Talu. I am Talu.
I am Talu.